Hey everybody, Ghoul02 here, and wanted to do a box opening pretty much as I do for any new set. This is the 2024 anniversary box featuring, I think that's Crisis Core art. I don't think it's Rebirth. I think the Rebirth key art is a little different, but wanted to open this up, kind of walk people through what all's inside it, kind of talk about the cards inside together a little bit. Generally, these are really good products, especially if you're new to the game. Um, by the way, that looks really, really nice in person. It's one of the higher quality boxes that they'll release. So, first things first, we have a start guide. I'm a little disappointed they didn't just go ahead and print the LB description on this. Just this is going to be outdated in one set, so like I feel like that's a bit of a flavor fail. Same for here. We have a paper playmat. Nothing super crazy or anything like that. But like we should have an LB deck slot like down here or like over by our damage zone, right? So I mean it's nice. I'm glad it exists. I haven't played on a paper playmat since I was a kid, but the fact these exist, pretty decent. And also just getting big full art prints for this and the the lock and the Celes. Interesting on the lock and the Celes, considering neither of them is actually in the box, but and then much like the Squall, I actually had the Squall box right here. Same general size and layout on the inside, so if you've seen that, you kind of know what to expect already. I don't love the way these are shaped. You notice like they have to put this little like divider right here to help keep this where your cards aren't going to move around a bunch, but and inside we have a big brick of 200 cards. So you have a 50 card constructed deck. It's not perfect or anything like that. And then 100 just generic staple-ish cards that you can use to upgrade your decks and or build new decks. And generally they do a decent job. There's definitely some stuff that I would like to have seen in here. As always, if you get a precon in Final Fantasy, the easiest way to de-stick things, just take your thumb and just kind of do that on both sides before you dig in. So we have the Zax. This is probably the best promo in the set. It's a little bit like the Ishtola, Dissidia Ishtola from the Anniversary Dissidia starter deck or the last set. 4 CP, 7k, gains his haste. When he attacks, he gets a dull forward, and then when you dull forward, he gets to do 5k to a forward. In theory, this can do more damage than Ishtola, but in practice, I think it's just a lot more awkward to line up. And I think Lightning has a lot less use for an effect like this than Ice. Ice has always struggled with removal, so Ishtola being just generic removal for an element that doesn't have it is part of the reason that card was so strong. But Zac is definitely strong enough to see some competitive experimentation. And then the rest of the deck, 2 Waltz, 3. You never get more than a playset of Legends. One thing I really wish they would do, I don't like full art non-foil. I will just straight up say I think that I would prefer a non-foil than a full art non-foil. But I think every Legend in this set should be full art non-foil. And the reason why is because it feels kind of bad to have your cards reprinted in the exact same frame as they've already been printed. So I think actually this would be a way of differentiating this product's Legends, which are should be the chase cards in a set, from the Legends that were opened in Opus 16, which was now 3 years ago. 3 copies of Vivi, just a generically nice card. 3 copies of Celir, so it's like a Black Waltz Ice Lightning list. 3 Heidegger. Heidegger's a fine enough backup. 3 Uke, that pairs with the Norstallins, so definitely a decent inclusion. 3 Quan, this is a card you probably want at least one of, so it's nice to have in the list. And 3 Odin, pretty nice little reprint. These weren't super expensive because I think they showed up getting reprinted in a starter deck somewhere, but they were a little bit harder to find, and they are just nice to have, and they're from a COVID set, so hard to find. Other original design, we have 3 Laguna. So this is a warp card. When he enters the field, that actually looks really nice. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up very well. That is a really pretty card in full art. Makes me more excited for the FF8 stuff in Hidden Hope. When he enters the field, you can dull freeze a character. It's not a very strong effect for a 3 CP 7K, but if he comes in due to warp, you can also do 8K to a dull forward, including the 40 dull. So you kind of can dull freeze and do 8K to the same forward, or split it across two things. He's fine, but I generally think warp is such an underpowered mechanic. Like, there's like potential for like Laguna Kyros to be a thing. I don't really think it's a strong enough package to really matter. But maybe it is. Maybe Kyros plus Laguna, and then like, I don't know, Theodore and Vayne as a deck. Something to experiment with. Two Physalis, including the only version of Physalis that's in full art. Everybody was laughing because nobody saw the Moogle. I didn't know this, actually. This is concept art. It's not a 3D model. If you ever look up Physalis as a character, that is not like an in-game model or anything. It's like concept art. 3 Orphan, just a good card to have. 3 Black Mage, it's a common, but I mean, if the goal is to have a playable deck, okay. 3 the Bard, which is the same bounce cycle backup as the Uke. Less good than Uke because Uke obviously has the synergy with Norstalin, who's included in this actually. Bit strange. 3 Unalesca, just a good staple ice backup. Everybody needs 3 copies of it. 3 copies of Edward. 2 copies of Alcid. Again, Legends, you're only going to get 2 copies of each. And 2 copies of Zeromus. This is a mono art. A mono art, you only get 2 copies of a card. A little bit like frustrating that you only get 2 copies of some of these, but I think that rounding out some players' playsets while giving other players trade bait is probably good enough without completely devaluing previous sets. I actually don't mind this too much, even if it is a little bit frustrating. Lastly, there's one more original design, which is Aerith, based on her dress in 7 Remake. 2 CP, Job Ancient. When Aerith, or the character you control cannot be returned to your opponent's hand, or to your hand by your opponent's summons or abilities. It's really narrow. This would maybe be like a side deck against like the Tori Kelly bouncy castle list, but I don't think this is a card that I'm like dying to play. She has an entry effect where you can reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, play a backup, cost 2 or less. It's a good effect, but the biggest problem is that like you don't want to play only 2 cost backups because so many engine backups are 4 costs. So even if this hits, it's a really, really good rate for what it is. You kind of develop a forward into backup at the same time. I just don't see this really being a thing unless we get like a lot of like forward stacking, or ability to stack at the top of our deck. But I don't think this deck is incredible, but it's decent. You have the Black Mage package. You probably would swap out the Aeriths for the Waltz 2s in here. Let's go over kind of some of the staples and see what's in these. Again, lots of kind of legends. So we'll start off here with the Fire and Ice. Keep the wind cards over here. 2 copies of Axstar as our Fire Legend. This card was actually pretty expensive. I don't know if people knew that, but always really nice. 3 copies of Starter Zangan. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Tifa is a very important name for a lot of decks. This also gives Tifa haste, so this is a 1 card to give that Opus 20 Tifa a chance at some play, as opposed to having to like stick a Barret or something. Definitely something to be experimented with. Honestly, maybe even underexplored to like have a Earth, Wind, Fire shell using that Tifa. 3 copies of Starter Terra. She dropped in price a lot once the reprint came out, and she started kind of falling off in play a little bit, but just a good card to have access to. She'll come in and out of metas just because an EX burst that gets back a summon is always decent, and her rate is fine. 3 copies of Lilty. This is just a nice card to have access to. Again, it pairs well with the Norstalin in the list. 3 copies of Amaterasu. This should have been reprinted a long time ago, but I mean, I'm not going to complain. I think this card should be kind of just flooded on the market, which is what's going to happen now. So, if you're holding on to Amaterasu stonks, I hope you got foil ones because a lot of the other ones are going to drop in value. 3 Zonde. Um, kind of a decent Megissa card. It's not like it doesn't need a reprint, it's a common, but if you're just getting into the game, this is a decent little backup to have access to. 3 copies of Arcaicus. It's a little weird to get 3 copies of this because you really only want 1 in most lists, but very undercosted removal at the cost of never being able to play your 5th backup, or use your 5th backup, really. 3 copies of Susano. Again, just a generically good board wipe. This is a really nice product if you're just getting into the game, because, I mean, Terra, Amaterasu, Susano, these are all cards that can go in pretty much any fire deck, and you feel pretty good about it. 3 copies of Vaughn. They give you the entire Sky Pirate backup engine in this list, which is good. I've always said that's a really underrated way for new players to get into a deck. 3 copies of Waltz 2. Kind of round out the waltzes in that package. 3 Luneth. Again, it's only a rare, but it's a decent, card. And 3 copies of Tifa. This one's fine. You got to pick some backups. And Fire really has had kind of a shortage of really good backups. I would probably put like Selfie in instead, but I don't think they wanted to print anything from 18. Or too many things from 18. There actually are a couple cards that are from older sets. But Tifa's fine. She's seen some experimentation. For the ice cards, a lot fewer of them because of the deck. 3 copies of Ezale. 2 copies of this old Amano Laguna. I don't think this card was particularly expensive, but it is nice to have access to, especially with all of the FF8 shenanigans they're seeming to push. This very easily could be a card that, like, next set you start doing the 13 thing of going, like, Selfie for Laguna, Laguna for Squall, Squall, punch in. 3 copies of Uke, staple FFCC backup. 3 copies of Renoa, just trying to make sure we have access to all of the 8 stuff before the next set. 3 copies of Devout. This already got reprinted. It's a common. It's not super necessary. 3 Laswell. Laswell is a very, very good generic staple ice card. Totally okay with that inclusion. Let's get our wind. Perfect. 2 copies of Bismarck to go along with 2 more copies of Azura. Weirdly, the wind section in this deck got a lot of reprints that were in the original anniversary box. The 3 Azura, 3 Northstalin were both in the original anniversary box for some reason. 3 Pinello, always really nice to have access to her. I think this card is probably underplayed relative to her power level. 2 copies of Chocobo. This is Chocobo's first reprint. Desperately needed it. This was like a $20 non-foil. Absolutely game determinative. Could not play wind without this card. 3 copies of Thief. It's nice to have access to, but it was in the Noctis starter, like the Retainer starter deck. I wish they would have just found a different backup for that slot. Maybe like the other side of the Cascade for them. 3 copies of my favorite card in the game, Fiona. She's fallen off quite a bit, but I think having access to her, at least at 1, is probably just never bad. 3 Alexander, common, but COVID set, kind of hard to find. I don't mind this one. 3 Ochu, again, COVID set, common, but, pretty decent. Typhon, relative staple. 3 Philo. 3 Zidane, very funny that they're printing all the cards that need to be banned in this. And then 3 copies of Fina. Fina wasn't expensive, but she probably should be in here just to give that core for wind. Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't throw Luso in here. Maybe they're doing the thing where they're expecting to ban Luso. Yu-Gi-Oh! Used to do that a lot, where they wouldn't reprint cards if they were going to ban them in the near future. For Earth, 2 Ursula, 2 Roble as our legends. These make sense. Ursula was a little bit hard to find. Very early COVID set. Still is the best card in Monks, kind of the reason to play that deck. Roble obviously is a very, very powerful card, still sees a lot of play. Kolka was in the original anniversary box, as was Mist Dragon, as was Kusith. But I'm always happy to have extra copies of these. 3 copies of Tyro. This is Tyro's first reprint other than the promo from going to the large tourneys. I think regardless, this card Should have been in the Noctis deck, but I'll take it here. 3 copies of Beastmaster. This is another Cascade backup, so they're kind of completing those a little bit. 3 Monks, 3 Vigali, 3 more Monks, 3 Montleonis. Not a hard card to get, but again, a good one to have access to. 3 Cactuar, probably one of the better staple summons they could have thrown in here. And then 3 copies of Matoya. Usually a card you only need 1 of, but if you're building a staple set of cards, I feel like if they were going to reprint some of these again, I would have rather like found room to throw 1 copy of Shantoto in there to kind of make the card go down a little bit on the secondary market again. In Lightning, we have the 2 Opus 16 Ishtola. She was getting very expensive. Very happy to see that card get reprinted. 3 Aldo, that was in the previous box, but it's nice to have more copies of. 3 Selkie. Again, it's nice to see them kind of at least have some Crystal Chronicles focus on the backups. That's just a generic thing that Crystal Chronicles gets a lot of backups printed, but Selkie is a good card regardless. 3 Alize and 3 Man in Black. Very good staple card. I think he was even getting up to be about a $2 hero just because he shows up in so many different lists. For Water, I think this one's actually pretty funny. They just said, screw it. Lena's from 3 sets ago. That's old enough to reprint her, but they gave you the Lena Leviathan combo. Even in the right ratios, honestly. I like 2 Lena, 2 Leviathan most of the time. For the rest of the cards, 3 Ovelia, Opus 1, generic card that's kind of gone up in price. One of the few cards that's actually aged really well from that set. 3 copies of each Viking. Don't mind these. They're seeming to try to push them as an archetype. In the same way that like I don't mind the monk reprints just to kind of get you like all the cards in one core. I believe the 2020 anniversary box has the 3-drop Viking. So if you buy each of these boxes, you just have every Viking you ever could possibly need. 3 copies of Merylwib. Again, just a staple water card. I think this was in the previous box too. 3 Andoria. This was not in the previous box, but it's nice to have access to. Just a good generic card for any deck that does a lot of partying. Shows up a lot in the 6 decks right now, given that they're like kind of the one deck that does a lot of that. 3 copies of Thornton. This is a card that was getting very expensive for a rare. Very happy to see a reprint. 3 Clavets. This card really didn't see a lot of play. I think usually you'll see the Bounce Clavet instead if you're playing that. 2 copies of Sarah. Very happy to see her in here, but this should have been a full art. I'm very sad there's not going to ever be a chance at a full art Sarah in foil, unless we get something very, very fun or special. So it's just like it's the best card, the best backup in the game. I'd like to see her get some love in a higher rarity. 3 Leviathan. This card is actually very expensive for a rare. And lastly, 3 Sarah Mobius. She's not a world beater, but she is a card that like is generically decent enough. I could see wanting access to her. So this is the section I have kind of the most qualms with for some of the reprint choices. I think they missed a lot of really important cards in these, but these are the multi-elements. First things first, we have the anniversary promo. I don't think there's a deck with these, and the big problem is that the first anniversary promos haven't been reprinted, and they're actually like kind of difficult to get in condition to make them playable. So in theory, there is this like 4-color Warrior of Light deck with like Snow and Lightning, Tidus and Yuna, and Warrior of Light. I have no idea what that looks like, but there is at least like maybe something there, like saying okay, they can attack 3 times, and they'll have Brave, and this one gives it a dull freeze. You can have it build your own Gilgamesh BE. 2 copies of Locke, and 2 copies of Ishtola as the multi-element legends they gave us, in addition to the Alcids in the deck. The Locke definitely needed the reprint. The Ishtola I think was actually decently expensive, but there's so many multi-element cards that need the reprint as well. And I feel like of the cards that like could have a reprint, I think Ishtola is a card that has so much name competition that she's just not going to show up very often. Like I think that like right now, if you're in Wind, you're going to play the 3-drop Ishtola instead, the Opus 5, and this one really is just kind of a big beat stick. We have a lot of like random Opus 12 commons. 3 Riku, it's like she's okay. 3 Prish, Prish is fine. I've sleeved it more than a few Prishes. 3 Gawain, sure. 3 Steiner, I don't get this one at all. It's like they just reprinted the entire common cycle from Opus 12 for some reason. 3 Sarah Mobius, good card, but she was already reprinted. I feel like we could have gotten another common, like Cater, if they wanted to do a common, or, there's Yuzuki would have been fantastic here. It seems like she would do better than the Steiners at least, and wouldn't really like change reprint value of the set. 3 copies of Princess Sarah. You only ever need one of this card, but they want to give playsets of stuff they can, so sure. And 3 Venera Fens. I guess there's not really a staple dark backup or dark card they want to play. I wouldn't have minded Chaos here, but it's not like Chaos was expensive relative to Princess Sarah. So, all in all, I think this product is fine. It doesn't fix all of the secondary market issues with the game. I think a lot of cards that still desperately need reprints just will never get them. So they kind of have to get power crept, or you just kind of have to pony up and pay the money for them, which I don't particularly enjoy. I feel like there's got to be a better solution than that. I think the original cards are good enough to see play, but you probably also be able to get these traded pretty cheaply, at least for the non-foils. And I still don't understand the idea for why the anniversary cards, they give you the 3 full arts, and then the other ones you get just 1 full art. That's still just such a strange decision to me. I think Zach will probably find a home in Ice Lightning already. I don't know about the Laguna. I don't know about the Snow and Lightning. And I think the Aerith just is going to lose out to better generic cards you can play. So, with that, let me know what you all think of the 2024 anniversary box in the comments. I definitely recommend, if you're just getting into the game, pick up you don't want to do trades, just go to your local game store, pick up the Squall anniversary box. It's pretty easy to find. Pick up a copy of this, and then pick up any of the starter decks, the retainer one, the FF10 one, or the 13 one. Honestly, even the Dissidia one, you could probably build a pretty decent deck out of with these. And I think it'll give you the staples to that whenever you start moving to better and better decks over time, you will be able to actually upgrade it very easily, and you don't have to dig for as many staple cards. And this is a game where I think it actually does pay to play a lot of decks. I don't think you have to be a specialist in this game relative to other games. Otherwise, you also can. This will be a nice effect on the singles in the game. Bring the price down a little bit, make it a lot easier to play, which I think is also important. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.